Thank you very much, Jen, for being here with us today. Could you please introduce yourself to get us started?
So I'm currently Director of Research at the Economic and Social Research Council, which is part of UKRI. My career spanned roles in central government, so most recently working in Cabinet Office and Number 10, and the think tank sector, working at the Institute for Government in Demos, and also the university sector, working at the University of Toronto. And I think it's probably worth saying that a thread that runs through all of those roles is very much about championing the use of data analysis and evidence in government decision making and sort of driving new collaborations between researchers and policymakers. And obviously, that's something I'm doing at the ESRC as well.
In your experience, what are some of the most common challenges that researchers face when engaging with policymakers, and how can they be addressed?
So I think from my experience, some of the most common challenges are just understanding the needs of policymakers, researchers understanding that need, and how to present research in a way that's accessible to decision makers. And I think that another challenge, which I became to appreciate when I went into government, which perhaps I didn't as a researcher, is just how rarely policymakers think in disciplinary terms, or think about what a particular disciplinary perspective will bring to something. They see challenges and policy problems in an interdisciplinary way and what the sort of totality of evidence says on a particular issue, rather than what X or Y discipline would bring, which is often coming from a research background, is the perspective that you would take. So I think that's sort of probably some of the biggest challenges around engagement. A lot of it comes down to, I think, finding ways of making sure that researchers really increase their exposure to policymakers and policy debates. So that's everything from, building your network, either directly or via intermediaries. And I also think there's nothing like, immersing yourself in the day-to-day operations of a government department or a similar entity like Parliament to really understand the policy-making process, how to influence it, how to present information in ways that can be easy to use by decision makers. So there are some challenges, but I think increasingly we've got lots of structures and ways to overcome those.
What would you recommend to a social science or economics researcher who wants to integrate policy engagement into their projects from the beginning?
That's a really good question. So I think there are a number of ways that you can do that. I think sometimes thinking around, if there's an advisory group for your project that might have representation from policymakers, you might conduct a workshop where you could co-design some of your workshop or conduct scoping interviews with particular policymakers to sort of really identify their needs. I think that's something, though, it's not just about sort of the set of a research project, but thinking about ways to sort of continue and engage. So something like an advisory group can help with that, but also thinking about sort of user testing outputs with policymakers as well, to make sure that you're thinking across the lifetime of a project that it's as useful as possible, and will ultimately be used.
You talk about the importance of engaging with policymakers right from the beginning. So I was wondering, what avenues or platforms do you recommend for researchers looking to engage with policymakers?
So I think there are some quite broad ones that anyone can access. So there's organisations like UPenn, the university's policy engagement network, and they very much see themselves sort of one-stop shop for academics and policymakers and people also working in research services in universities. And they run lots of events to sort of support policy researcher engagement. So I think it's really worth looking at sort of activities like organisations like those. A lot of universities have their own version of that, sort of local units that can provide some of that support. And then there's lots of external organisations running that have those sort of opportunities as well. So like the Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology, they have post-fellow opportunities. The Royal Society, for instance, they've got a pairing scheme where they match scientists to policymakers and parliamentarians. So there's quite a lot of different organisations or sort of platforms that you can use to provide really sort of structured ways of engaging with policymakers rather than having to sort of cold call and approach people without that support. So definitely recommend looking at some of those. And then there are some also just sort of ways in which the support to contact intermediaries. So, for instance, like universities have press offices, and often, policymakers are really alive to what's being reported in the media as well. So, thinking about press releases for research that you're putting out, or engaging think tanks who are often very used to as an intermediary engaging policymakers. So I think there's lots of sort of direct and sort of indirect ways of trying to make advances in this area.